Hello my lovelies, and thank you so much for joining me today. So before we can talk about what happened in Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial on Tuesday, which was yesterday, during the last week of the trial, I need to talk to you in today's video about the witnesses that were brought forward last week by Amber Heard's side. If I don't talk about those witnesses first, then whatever happened yesterday on Tuesday in court, it won't make much sense. So today's video is going to be about the witnesses from last week. Because yesterday in court we had rebuttal witnesses. So if you don't get the story of the witnesses, then the rebuttal witnesses won't make much sense, if you get what I mean. But before we get started, just quickly, the word for today is tribunal. 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 Well done, guys. You just said court. Because we are in court, so yeah, I thought it was fitting. Thanks for trying to say with me. Now, I just want to give a quick disclaimer. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. I don't mean any disrespect to anyone I talk about in the video. All the information I'm giving you is already found in the public domain, and I will also be sharing my own opinions and views regarding the case I'm talking about. Thank you so much. So, I'm hoping I'm not going to make this video so long, because it seems that when my videos are not scripted, I keep on talking and talking and talking, and it seems like it's going on forever. As I've noticed, the latest videos on Johnny Depp and Amber Heard are over 1 hour long. I'm trying to keep them condensed and I'm trying to keep them shorter, but considering I am following videos on a note rather than scripts like I usually do in my videos, I kind of tend to talk a bit too much. So if you want to stop me please, because I can't stop myself. You can pause me anytime that you want. So anyway, yeah, see, I'm going rambling again. Okay, so we need to talk about the witnesses for Amber Heard's side from last week, because they are very important, and some of the witnesses included Amber Heard's friends at the time that she was with Johnny Depp, at the time that they were living at the penthouses. And also I need to talk about, obviously, Amber's sister Whitney Henriquez, but I'm going to be making an entire video only around Whitney Henriquez, because there are a couple of things that I want to touch in the video. So I think I'm just gonna drag it for longer and longer if I will include Whitney in the witnesses list for today, in today's video. The first witness on deposition was Untitled Chapter, who was, if you remember, Amber's friend, and he at one point lived in the penthouses as well with Johnny, Amber and the friends. So the penthouses were, I think, 5 of them, and Johnny Depp offered them to live there for free. So Amber Heard brought all of her friends over. Talk about isolating, right? So she was surrounded by all of her friends all of the time. They all live for free. So one of them was Io. Then we also had Raquel Pennington. Now Io used to be friends with Amber Heard, but they cut the friendship, so they are not friends anymore. I'm not sure what happened, but I guess that says quite something. Then also we have Raquel Pennington, who used to be friends with Amber, who had quite a close relationship. They are not friends anymore. Again, it kind of says something about the dynamics of their relationships, or friendships, if you will. Anyway, so Io, he got on to talking about his relationship with Johnny Depp, if you will, and also his relationship with Amber Heard, and how they were getting along, and what interactions he had himself with Johnny Depp, and if there were any instances where he witnessed any kind of violence from Johnny Depp towards Amber Heard. Now I'm gonna tell you, spoiler from the get-go, all of Amber Heard's friends, none of them witnessed any kind of violent acts from Johnny Depp towards Amber's side, towards Amber Heard. So again, these people are talking about, and they are mentioning things which Amber was the one who told them. So they only know whatever they know coming straight from Amber. They never witnessed any kind of violent acts from Johnny towards Amber. So this is all based on what Amber is telling them, if you will. Io, apart from having a really great friendship with Amber Heard and being very close, he also started developing quite a close friendship with Johnny Depp whilst they were living all in the same building, if you will. According to Io, Johnny confided in him on various occasions on different things like his childhood, like how his mom was towards him and his siblings whilst they were children, how she was aggressive towards their own father, and also Johnny told Io that there were a couple of times when during his relationship with Amber he would black out, and he even blacked out in Australia. You remember the big fight in Australia where Johnny Depp got his finger severed? So according to Io, Johnny told him that he blacked out in the Australia trip as well, and even once he blacked out whilst they were flying on a plane. He even blacked out in the Bahamas when they were on the Bahamas trip. I think he was at the time when he was detoxing. According to Io, Johnny Depp, he really wanted to work towards his addictions and his alcohol use, and he wanted to get sober for Amber because Amber was the one who kept on pushing him that he needs to get sober, so he really wanted to do that for Amber. But according to Io, how he came across was that Johnny didn't quite like being sober, but he only tried to do it for Amber. He said that since he was quite young, he was using substances and alcohol because of his childhood, and then he got used to them and then he carried on using them, and he kind of liked the way it made him feel. So he was only looking to get sober for Amber, but he didn't really enjoy being sober. He didn't like how it felt for him being sober. Also, according to Io, he said in his testimony in the deposition that Amber was kind of like a leash. So she would kind of hold Johnny back from doing the things that he wanted to do, which again, considering he's a witness for Amber's side, I'm not sure that he benefits Amber that much. And also according to Io and all the conversations that they had whilst being only them both in their friendly conversations, Johnny more often than not said about himself that he is a monster and he is battling demons, and he is trying to battle the demon or the monster, and he won't be allowing the monster to win. Now, we know from Johnny Depp's testimony, whilst he was on the stand during direct and cross-examination, that Amber was the one who came up with this term for Johnny, whilst he was, having the behaviors changed during his alcohol use and his substances use. So Amber was the one who came up first with the name as the demon, and then it progressed into being called a monster. And then, Johnny Depp, he kind of went with this and he started calling himself a monster. And of course that Amber's friends, they would start calling Johnny's different sides as the monster. So when the monster comes out, that Amber, she highlights, and she loves highlighting this, the monster side of Johnny, right? And I think that looking at everything that we have seen so far, this monster term, from my point of view, it not only started with Amber calling Johnny a monster, but we know psychologically, right, when you have a manipulator, when you have an aggressor in a relationship, they will try to condition you, and they will try to make you feel like you're not worthy, and they will start subtly and slowly kind of introducing these terms for you and for that side that they don't like. And as a victim, you start being conditioned and you start believing all those things that they say, because that's the way that the aggressor in a DV relationship works, really. That's how they manage to keep control. So Amber Heard came up with the term demon, and then it got transferred to monster. Now, After being conditioned for so long throughout their entire relationship, Johnny starts calling himself a monster as well. So that's why I think that we see Johnny referring to himself as a monster, because of the way that Amber conditioned him. This is the way I see it psychologically. It's like when someone is in a cult, and you know, the cult leader, they thrive on manipulation, they thrive on conditioning, on, you know, psychological games. So this is something very similar to a cult, in the sense that she kind of conditioned Johnny into seeing himself as she says that he is, rather than how he actually is. I also said that Johnny was extremely paranoid when he was under the influence of either alcohol, when he was under the influence of substances, and he says he was paranoid because apparently Johnny Depp kept on saying about Amber that she is cheating on him, and that she goes about and she has affairs with different people. Then Johnny Depp would also go into insulting his fans to Io, and he started talking quite negatively towards his own mother and his sister, which I believe Io said it was Christy, his sister Christy. And then at one point, as time went on, Johnny progressed to being very nasty towards anyone who would cross him. So this is what Io is saying. Now again, the paranoia and the constant thinking that he's got affairs, this is something that Amber Heard has affairs, this is something that Amber Heard was constantly saying and is constantly saying. So I'm assuming that she would constantly tell this to her friends. So again, I'm not sure how much of Io's testimony I'm willing to believe, in the sense that whatever he witnessed, because most of the things that he's talking about, it kind of comes across that all of these things came from Amber rather than him actually witnessing these kind of things. And there were a lot of things that Johnny confided in Ao, and they were quite, you know, personal things, and I really felt bad for Johnny when Ao was in the deposition, because you consider someone your friend and you pour your heart and your soul out to that person, only for them to try and use it against you in court as it happens. So there were a lot of things that Johnny talked to him about. Well, I'm thinking that perhaps hoping it was in confidence and these things won't be spread about. And one of the other things that he said was witnessing for so long the relationship between Johnny's mom and Johnny's dad whilst he was a child still. He saw a lot of violence, he saw a lot of aggression, and as he became a man after having a relationship with Amber, he kind of saw Amber the way that he saw his mom. So Amber was violent towards Johnny just the same way that his mom was violent towards his dad. And according to Io, Johnny Depp is the kind of person who is quite jealous. So there was jealousy in Amber and Johnny's relationship, and this would cause both Amber and Johnny to get into fights. According to Io, Amber, she gets really mean during arguments, and then Johnny kind of lashes out at her. So again, I'm saying here that this is not proof of DV from Johnny towards Amber, because if one person would tell you mean things, I mean, it depends on the person really, but you kind of try to stop that, and so you get into a confrontation with them, like lashing out. He didn't say anything about physically lashing out, but just lashing out. I'm guessing that, you know, when you are in an argument, then you kind of try to defend yourself. So if probably you see that speaking nicely doesn't work, then obviously you will start to show your anger in some instances, because not everybody is the same. So not everybody deals with certain confrontation the same way that other people do. For example, me, when I'm in an argument, I tend to shout a lot. I tend to shout a lot, which is really bad, and I can be mean as well. And it's just the tone of voice that I am using, which I don't hear myself at the time, but it can be very hurtful to the person that I'm having the argument with, if you follow what I mean. Also, according to Ayo, after their engagement, after Johnny proposed to Amber, they got into an argument and he trashed the hotel room. Again, it's not the first time that we are seeing this testimony from people saying that he trashed and he damaged and he created destruction, as Amber likes to say, or even though maybe he just, you know, tipped a rack of clothing, she calls it destruction. So again, it's, you know, the words you use to describe things. And Ayo was in fact the one that suggested therapy for Amber for couples who are in a relationship with addicts and alcoholics. So, and as far as Ayo is concerned, whilst he was present at their wedding, at the wedding ceremony, Ayo said that Johnny didn't really drink anything and he was sober, he didn't use anything, and this is what Ayo witnessed at the wedding ceremony. There is another thing which I found quite interesting that Ayo made sure to bring out, and that was that after they got married, Johnny told him that now that they are married, he can punch Amber in the face and nobody will do anything about it. So it's very, you know, sarcasm. In this case, when people are being sarcastic or making these dark jokes or having this dark humor, other people in this case, they take it as him showing violence or him showing tendencies of trying to get violent, right? As exactly this example, like Johnny saying, now we are married, I can punch her in the face and nobody would do anything about it, right? I take it, and I would take it personally as a joke, as being sarcastic. There are a lot of things like when you get married, you know, as part of your ceremony, till death do us part. So does that really mean that you're gonna kill yourself? You're gonna kill each other? You know what I mean? If you wanna get rid of the other of your spouse, no, it doesn't. It's just a saying that, you know, you say when you have a ceremony, just like sarcastic things that you say, or you make dark jokes or whatever. So I didn't take it in any sort of negative way, but he was trying to point it out in a negative way. Again, I have to emphasize the fact that Ayo, most of the things that Ayo knows is from what Amber told him, but overall Ayo's testimony didn't harm at all Johnny Depp, because whatever things that he said we already knew from when Johnny was on the stand and when he testified, you know, towards his behavior. So it didn't really help Amber. And throughout this entire case, all of Amber's witnesses don't seem to be helping her in any way, but more helping Johnny. Which again, I don't know what's up with Amber Heard's team's strategies, because they are clearly failing at this.
That's crazy, I know, but I've been doing it my whole life. I'm built like a tank, and so that was kind of the nature of the conversation. And he told me that he had struggled with ever not drinking or ever not doing drugs, and he also told me that he didn't particularly concerned with his children, and he would express shame or regret about times that he had been inebriated to the point of falling down or embarrassing himself, you know, urinating on himself, things like that, when his children were around. He told me that in his relationships with life sober, and that it was too painful to be alive without, had experienced great bouts of jealousy in relationships that had also led to a lot of drinking and a lot of rage activities. He told me that happened with Winona. He told me that happened with Winona Ryder and Kate Moss. He told me that had happened with Vanessa Paradis.
Mr. Tillett-Wright, what, if any, observations did you make about Mr. Depp about OxyContin?
Over the course of those 2 years, Mr. Depp told me verbatim that he was addicted to OxyContin. And I have a text message from him where he expresses that it's extraordinarily hard to kick, and that it, I don't remember exactly the words that he uses, but he referred to it to me verbally many times as like the hardest thing that he's ever tried to kick, which he's tried to kick most things. He said it was harder than heroin. So he was very open and verbose about OxyContin, having gotten addicted to OxyContin.
So what, if any, observations did you make about Mr. Depp smoking cigarettes and marijuana?
Mr. Depp, as far as I could see, always had a cigarette or joint in his mouth at all times, to the point where I was confused about how he could function. He also showed me his marijuana closet that had, I don't know, tens and tens of pounds of weed in it.
What, if any, observations did you make while you were staying at Sweetser? I think you said that was August 2013 through May of 2014, with respect to the type of alcohol and the amount of alcohol that Mr. Depp was consuming.
When I saw Mr. Depp drink, it was often hard liquor. I believe it was whiskey and gin and tequila, maybe. Could also be vodka. I don't know. He had a full bar in 80, the house that they, with his recording studio in it, that they mostly stayed in. So, I know whiskey for sure, and there was also red wine, a lot of red wine.
And when you talk about the whiskey and the red wine, how much did you observe Mr. Depp consume on any given occasion of those?
I don't know. The one occasion I know specifically was the one that I mentioned before during the argument, where he suddenly had a glass of whiskey, and I remember it being like, I remember clocking, because I grew up counting people's drinks, I remember clocking that it was a very large pour in the glass of whiskey.
If you recall those, I think my question was, what, if any, observations did you make, or did Mr. Depp ever tell you about him blacking out?
Mr. Depp was very open with everyone that he was a heavy user. And he told me about, I know there was one instance where he had this very large house property. So if Sweetser Avenue goes like this, the house that I was staying at, 76, is down here, then there's 78, which is right here, and then up here is 80, and then across the street, I guess, is 82. And 82 is a very large compound. So he and I were staying, I was at 76 or up at 80, and then 82 they lived in for a brief period of time. And he told me about like vanishing into 82, into the like the property, into the like, because it was very lush and a lot of trees, and went up quite far up the hill. And he told me about kind of like blacking out and going in there. On one instance, he told me, I know that he told me that in Australia, he had blacked out, but he also told me that he found, I don't know, in terms of specific blackouts, there were a number, I think he said on the plane, he said that he didn't remember what had happened.
What, if anything, did Mr. Depp say to you about whether he wanted to become sober and clean?
Mr. Depp expressed to me that he wanted to get sober for Amber, that he didn't enjoy being sober, that it wasn't fun, and that it was distressing and exhausting, and very hard to do. he really resented having to be sober. He didn't want to be.
And what, if anything, did Mr. Depp say to you about his perception of Amber's role in him becoming sober and clean?
He expressed a number of times that he felt like she was his leash and she was holding him back from doing what he wanted to do in terms of substances and alcohol. I just want to go back to another incident that I remember. He told me he blacked out, was on the island. He went to the Bahamas. There were two different instances. One was, I guess, like they had only recently met, and he told me that he passed out face down in the sand while his kids were there, and that the staff had like whisked his kids away so that they didn't see it.
Then we had the second witness. Another witness was for Amber Heard's side was Bruce Whitkin, and he was a very long time friend of Johnny's, and they were even in a band together. They used to sing and play together in a band. They were musicians, these kind of things. Now Johnny, he's not friends with Bruce anymore, because according to Bruce, there were some rumors going around, and he said that kind of, Johnny got upset with Bruce, that apparently Bruce changed sides, and, he was trying to hurt Johnny, so Johnny let him go, and they were not friends anymore after a very, very long friendship. Now, Bruce is saying that they were best friends up until 4 years ago, so it was around the time that Amber Heard and Johnny Depp were in a relationship. So throughout this trial and throughout these testimonies, you will hear and you will see that a lot of people are being affected, and a lot of the relationships are being affected from when Johnny and Amber got together. So according to Bruce, between 2011 and 2016, him and Johnny Depp, they used to talk a lot, they used to communicate a lot over the phone, in person, they used to create music, they used to make films, and all these kind of things, and then the friendship kind of, got cut off by Johnny. What's interesting to note here is that Bruce said that even when Johnny was under the influence of substances, he still had a very good memory, and this will be helpful in my next video when we get the rebuttal witnesses, and also from the video that I just published today from what happened in court on Monday with Dr. Spiegel. We know that Dr. Spiegel, he was very adamant that Johnny Depp has cognitive problems, and because of his substance and alcohol use, it affects his memory and all these kind of things. So Bruce, who was Johnny's longtime friend, said that even when Johnny was under the influence, he still had a very good memory. And his use of alcohol and his use of substances never really impacted their music. In approximately 2013, while Johnny Depp was filming Lone Ranger, he was actually sober during filming on the set for the movie. And it's very interesting to note that Bruce didn't actually trust Dr. Keeper. And when he found out that Dr. Keeper is going to be treating Johnny Depp, he didn't really like the idea, because he didn't trust him. And during Johnny's treatment, and the reason why Bruce is saying he didn't trust Dr. Keeper was because during Dr. Keeper's treatment of Johnny Depp about his substance use and his alcohol use and things like that, Johnny seemed like he was a zombie. He didn't seem to be himself, and Bruce is saying that something happened to Johnny during this time, and then he went back to the drug and alcohol use. So I think that we've heard this before about Dr. Keeper. I think it was even from Amber, when Amber was saying that Dr. Keeper gave Johnny a high dose of medication and he was behaving very weirdly. And then they had to kind of get to the point where they had to cut down the dose for his medication, because Amber said that he just wasn't okay, he wasn't himself. He would just fall asleep, he just wanted to sleep, he would be depressed, he would be, very, very different behavior to the Johnny you see normally otherwise. Bruce also said that obviously being a longtime friend with Johnny, he also observed his relationship with Vanessa, the mother of his children, and he said that during their relationship, Johnny was jealous. And even though Vanessa never did anything to make him jealous, or she never had any affairs, this was all in his head. So we are seeing again another instance where Johnny Depp allegedly was being jealous. But you can kind of argue that because Vanessa is a model, Vanessa is, I think she's a singer as well, isn't she? And she's always in the public eye, and she always has to, you know, be in the public eye. So it kind of makes sense that he would be jealous, because you never know what people do or how people behave around your wife when she's in the public eye. So yeah, it can be a negative thing, but it can also be, you know, kind of a thing which doesn't really affect anything, if you know what I mean. And of course that Bruce is saying that Johnny was jealous in his relationship with Amber as well. And again, a lot of these things were in his head, but again, I have to say that it's already been proven that Amber cheated on Johnny with James Franco. We have the CCTV footage. She also had other people in the penthouses when Johnny wasn't around, including Elon Musk. And we will hear later on from Joshua Drew's testimony that there were hundreds of men going in their penthouses late at night whilst Johnny was away working. So this jealousy of Johnny's with Amber was not unfounded. And just like with Ayo's testimony, Bruce never saw any kind of, violence between Amber and Johnny whilst he, witnessed them being together. However, he did say that he noticed Johnny had a busted lip in around 2015-2016. And he also said that he saw bruise marks on Amber's arm, but they seem to be like grab marks, like someone grabbing her by the arms and hands. Again, it also depends. Look, I'm not trying to find the justification for every action of Johnny's, but I'm trying to kind of see both sides of the coin here. So, bruises from grab marks. Again, he could have grabbed her maybe when he was trying to leave an argument and she wouldn't let him go. So he kind of grabbed her, let me go, so he can make some space to get distance from her. It can also be that Amber is light-skinned and she gets bruised very easily. Me, for example, I am light-skinned as well, and I have to tell you that I get bruised very easily. And I'll give you a very, very recent example. I'm not sure if you can see the bruise here and here. It's kind of fading now. I didn't cover it with anything because I don't typically do that with my bruises. But here, I was cleaning the other day the kettle, the lime scale from the inside of the kettle on the bottom. The kettle is a glass kettle, right? It's the one that you plug in and you boil water in. It's a glass kettle. And as I was getting my hand inside to reach the bottom of the kettle to kind of clean the bottom from lime scale, I was using a metal scourer, I'm not even sure how that's pronounced. And it took me about half an hour to clean it, right? It took me half an hour because I was really struggling. I have some issues with my left hand, and I am left-handed as well, and I'm having issues, and I was kind of struggling. So it took me more or less half an hour to clean that kettle. And all this time when I had my hand in, I rested this part of my hand on the top rim of the glass, on the top. And because I rested my hand on the top for so long, I bruised my hand. I bruised here, my hand, and I also had the bruise here. And that was from me cleaning the kettle, which sounds ridiculous. And if you say it to someone, they won't believe you that you get a bruise from cleaning a kettle. But honestly, guys, I did get a bruise from cleaning the kettle. So again, I'm derailing here, but all I'm saying is that people get bruised differently depending on how sensitive their skin is, on the color of their skin, and yeah, that pretty much sums it up there. Of course, that Bruce, knowing Johnny for a very long time, he saw Johnny and his behavior when he was using, substances and alcohol, and Bruce is saying that Johnny didn't change his behavior whilst he was under the influence, so he was still the same Johnny as he was when he was sober. Yes, and this kind of emphasizes what we all already knew. So the last, I'm gonna end Bruce's testimony here with the last thing, with one of the other things that he said, and he said that Johnny, that it seemed everyone wanted something from Johnny, and he kind of emphasizes what we already thought and what we've already witnessed. So people kind of trying to take advantage of him, and I'm gonna say the same thing about Amber and her friends. Johnny Depp was taken advantage of by Amber and her friends, in my honest opinion. I mean, to have someone to live for free and having, you know, expensive trips paid for and these kind of things, everybody would want this kind of life, isn't it, to live for free? Not everybody does it, so that kind of says something about what type of a person you are.
If we could bring up Exhibit 15, please. If you look at the first text, Mr. Wiccan, it's from Mr. Depp. It says, "I'm good, just got a finger."
Right.
And the second text?
That's from Dudes, yeah.
And do you remember what you would have been concerned about?
Just the fact that somehow the finger got cut off, and he's got doctors around him that are supposed to be making him sober, and everything's supposed to be better, and it wasn't.
Did Mr. Depp ever talk to you about that, about sobering up?
A little bit. He just said, you know, AA wasn't his cup of tea. Didn't believe in a higher power.
He didn't believe sobering up was his cup of tea?
No, he just didn't believe in a higher power. If he was going to do it, he'd do it his own way.
Do you remember any specific incidents of anger with Amber?
I mean, he would talk about frustrations or whatever, and we would try and talk through it, but it wasn't as much anger as it was like confusion and sadness and why is this not working, you know. But no, he would never, very rarely would it be a specific reason why.
And did you notice any increase or decrease in Mr. Depp's anger when he was drinking or on drugs?
I didn't notice much of a difference, you know.
Did you ever see Mr. Depp doing drugs with other bandmates?
Yes.
Did you ever see Mr. Depp doing drugs with Joe Perry?
Yes.
And what types of did you see them do?
They were doing coke.
And how do you know they were doing coke?
Because I was in the room.
And around what time was that?
It was pretty late.
What year?
It had to be 2016 because that's when we were on the road.
Have you ever seen Mr. Depp do cocaine in 2016?
Yes.
And when was that?
Probably 2014 was the first time I saw him do it, because I was quite surprised, because when we were kids, he hated this stuff. But then after that, when I kind of said, "Why are you doing this?" he kind of hid it from me for a long time until, I believe, in 2016.
And do you have any recollection of steps Mr. Depp took in December 2015 to try to assist in decreasing spending?
I don't know all the details about it. There was obviously another lawsuit with that whole thing. But I do know leading up to that time, he needed to slow down on spending. I heard about that.
Did Mr. Depp tell you about that?
Yeah.
What'd he say?
Time. Just something about the business manager and, you know, been spending too much and I need to slow down or do more movies or whatever.
Have you been involved in Mr. Depp's any of Mr. Depp's prior lawsuits?
Yes, I have. I was part of the first one against the management group, and then I was deposed in the lawsuit with his lawyer. Jake Bloom.
Did you testify? Do you remember testifying about alcohol use in that by Mr. Depp in that deposition?
Yes.
And what was that about?
I was at Johnny's house. Things were going good. We were hanging out, talking. And I guess Waldman came in and Johnny introduced me, and I just remember Waldman saying, "Hey, nice to meet you." And Johnny had told Waldman that I was part of Unison Music, which was named in the lawsuit, and if they needed any paperwork from me, that I had all my paperwork and tax returns. And Waldman turned right at me, looked me in the eye, and just said, "You got any shit on the Mandels?" And I said, "No." And that was it. That's the last time I saw him.
And you also testified in the Bloom case. Is that right?
Yeah.
Did you testify to Mr. Depp's drug alcohol use in that testimony?
I believe I did.
How did Mr. Depp respond to your testimony?
Not happy.
Not happy. And what's your relationship with Mr. Depp now? What happened in the last 4 years?
Honestly, I don't know. Somehow I started to feel a distance. End of 2017, we had a gig, and I saw him, but he was really kind of distant and kind of fucked up, and like he wrote me this weird text saying I stabbed him in the back and bad-mouthed him, and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he wouldn't explain it, and pretty much haven't seen him since 2018. Didn't even get to have the whole bro argument, just cut off.
Now moving on to the next witness, Tracy Jacobs, and she used to be the talent agent representing Johnny for around 30 years until he decided to sack her, to get rid of her. So from the beginning of this, I'm gonna say woman scorned, if you know the saying, a woman scorned, so you can kind of take her testimony with a grain of salt, because a woman scorned is a woman scorned, right? So so according to the talent agent, she's saying that, of course, Johnny Depp, he became the biggest star in the world, and it's very interesting to note that she's saying that she takes credit for his stardom, so she takes credit as well, not because Johnny is a brilliant actor and he's talented, but because thanks to her as well, being the talent agent. So again, from my point of view, this kind of says what type of a person Tracy Jacobs is, in my opinion, from what I'm seeing, because obviously I don't know her personally, so I have no idea who she is, but this is how she comes across to me. According to Tracy Jacobs, she's saying that he fired her because he accused her of having conflict of interest, which obviously she denies doing. In the last few years before he fired her, he became kind of complicated to manage. He was showing unprofessional behavior on the set, like for example showing up late for work, and Pirates 5 filming was actually suspended during Johnny Depp's finger injury because of his injury and because of the time that it actually took for him to get procedures done to repair the injury of the finger. So we can't really blame Johnny for the time it took for his finger injury to be healed, and I don't see this as Pirates 5 being suspended because of him. She kind of sees it that way. So, and she's also saying that Johnny Depp increased his alcohol and substance use in the last period, which again kind of coincides with the time that he started seeing Amber Heard, and when they went into a relationship and when they got married and these kind of things. And it was Tracy Jacobs who in fact referred Dr. Keeper to Johnny Depp. And you remember Bruce, Johnny's longtime friend, when he said that he didn't trust Dr. Keeper. So again, you can kind of see here kind of how the things were, right? And she's also saying that Johnny Depp what's happening with the light. Now this one. She's also saying that Johnny Depp was kind of romanticizing, substance culture, and Johnny Depp had anger issues which kind of worsened as time went on, and he didn't really have any patience, so he started showing no patience. And of course that she's also saying that all the lawsuits that he got involved in didn't really help his reputation. Oh my god, my light keeps going off, so this is just gonna be like without one light. So now you can see the difference in lighting. And yes, Tracy Jacobs actually emphasized the fact that in the last 10 years, up to 5 years ago, Johnny showed unprofessional behavior in terms of turning up late to work, in terms of, turning up under the influence, or having been drinking, or this kind of things, showing up to events drunk and all sorts of things. Again, I need to question this, because I'm wondering if he was, last 10 years up to 5 years ago, is it not possible that Johnny changed his behavior because of Amber Heard's relationship and because he was a victim of DV himself? We know that being a victim of DV for a very long time changes your behavior drastically, because, well, not drastically, but over time, because, again, I'm going back to the conditioning and the way that an aggressor usually tries to control their victim. So, again, we are seeing a decline in Johnny Depp during his relationship with Amber Heard as time goes on.
Was Mr. Depp a difficult client to represent?
He wasn't initially, and it became far more complicated in the last 10 years of my representing him.
And how did it become far more complicated in the last 10 years you represented him?
His unprofessional behavior.
Anything else?
I think that covers a multitude of things.
And that's going to be my next question. What do you mean by Mr. Depp's unprofessional behavior in the last 10 years of your representation?
Showing up late to set consistently on virtually every movie. I would get yelled at. I never said to him, "You're a difficult client." I never used those words, but I was very honest with him and said, "You've got to stop doing this. This is hurting you." And it did. And
did, even with your speaking to Mr. Depp about him consistently showing up late for set, did he correct that behavior during that last 10 years?
No.
And what types of difficulties did that cause for Mr. Depp?
Well, initially, crews loved him because he was always so great with the crew, but crews don't love sitting around for hours and hours and hours waiting for the star of the movie to show up. And it also got around town. I mean, people talk. It's a small community. And it made people reluctant to use him toward the end.
And when you say toward the end, was that toward the end of your representation of Mr. Depp?
Yes.
Are you aware of any significant role that Mr. Depp has starred in since you were terminated that you did not negotiate and get for him?
No.
Did Mr. Depp get The Invisible Man?
They didn't make it. They made it much lower budget with a woman, as it turns out, for Universal with Blumhouse.
You were asked about whether there was any option contract for Pirate 6. And I just want to make sure I understand your answer. Were you involved in any kind of negotiation with Disney for any kind of option contract for Pirate 6 with Mr. Depp?
Not that I can recall. No.
We had another witness, wrapping up on Tracy Jacobs. We also had another witness, Joel Mandel. Now, Joel Mandel, he was a witness for Amber Heard's side. He used to be Johnny Depp's business manager until Johnny Depp fired the company and brought a lawsuit against him for saying that his company and himself mismanaged Johnny's money, and that's why Johnny was losing a lot of money. Of course that this guy is not going to go on there in the deposition and say that yes, they mismanaged the money and they did God knows what. So it's interesting to know what he has to say. He's saying that that after filming the Rum Diaries, remember, Rum Diaries was when Johnny and Amber started getting closer together because they were filming on the same set. So around him filming the Rum Diaries in 2010, Joel, the manager, he started seeing changes in Johnny. He became more challenging to deal with, right? And they could see in his expenses that his substance and alcohol use began to increase. And according to Joel, now we also know that there were articles in the, I think it was a Rolling Stone article, where it was mentioned that Johnny Depp spent tons of money on wine. Now this goes back to him and Amber being in the relationship, and remember that Amber's favorite wine was like $1,000 or $800 a bottle. Amber drinks wine every night, and Johnny at one point in 1 year he spent $100,000 only on the wine that Amber drank. So you can clearly see that by the time he's getting into a relationship with Amber, his expenses are increasing, and it begs the question, why? But I think that we already know the answer to that. And also Dr. Keeper and the staff working around Dr. Keeper, you know, like Nurse Debbie Lloyd and things like that, they were paid around $100,000 per month, guys. They were paid $100,000 per month. Oh my God, that is a huge amount of money, $100,000 per month. So that would be what? 100,000. That will be 1,200,000 per year, right? If my math is right, which I know my math is never right, but I think I got the basic right. Maybe. I don't know. And so also Joel is saying that throughout their time, Johnny started showing erratic behavior, and the things with him were less predictable. He was increasingly upset, and also he had a disproportionate communication. Sometimes it would be difficult to get a hold of him. Sometimes you would need to kind of schedule appointments to see him around finding a time when Johnny Depp was sober. So that proved quite difficult, apparently, allegedly, according to Joel. And also according to Joel, when Johnny Depp was angry about something, he made sure to let people know of the way that he felt. And he became less concerned about hurting someone's feelings. Again, I can attribute that to him being a victim of DV. And also Joel also pointed out that Jerry Judge, Johnny's security detail, he was actually getting paid $10,000 per month. So more or less this is what Joel had to say. So you know, the highlights of Joel's deposition are that he started to see an increase in Johnny's spending on substance and alcohol, and he started showing more erratic behavior. And before their relationship terminated in 2016, around 2015, the company gave Johnny quite some warnings about his very high expenses, and then the contract got terminated in 2016. Moving on to the next witness, we also had Adam Waldman in a deposition, who is Johnny Depp's lawyer, and he is the lawyer who kind of was Johnny Depp's lawyer in other lawsuits. I think he was including the UK trial when Johnny Depp sued the Sun newspaper for defamation, when he was called a wife beater, and I think that he was also the lawyer for their divorce. I'm not sure about that, but anyway, his testimony, I found his testimony and actually his whole deposition useless, and I found that it was a waste of time for Amber Heard's side, because Waldman is still a lawyer for Johnny Depp. he's still employed by Johnny Depp, and as such, client-attorney privilege applies. So most of the questions that he was asked, he couldn't answer. He was brought in because of the countersuit that Amber made against Johnny, you know, for some statements that that Waldman made in the Daily Mail newspaper in the UK tabloid, and she alleges that those statements were defamatory, and so it impacted her career and her future financial whatever contracts and work, and you know, all these kind of things. So in a sense, I can see why they were bringing Waldman in, Amber Heard's side, because we will see later on in my next video that Amber Heard's lawyers are trying to point out, because he couldn't answer all of these questions around the statements that he made in the Daily Mail. Therefore, Johnny was the one who directed him to make those defamatory statements, and because he's not talking, that means that he's guilty of doing those things, right? So, but all the questions, most of the questions that were being asked were directed by Ben Chu, and he was the one who instructed Waldman to don't answer questions because of attorney-client privilege. So he couldn't really answer questions without talking about his communications and his professional relationship with Johnny as his lawyer, right? Waldman was Johnny's counsel since October 2016, and they first met in October 2016, and he was the one who, of course, provided advice for Johnny legally. Well, obviously, he's the lawyer, right? According to Waldman, him and Johnny Depp met after Amber Heard and Johnny split up, and it was after he read the divorce settlement. Johnny Depp filed a number of lawsuits after hiring Waldman, and we already know about the UK defamation lawsuit when the Sun newspaper called him a wife beater. So I think that these questions were kind of directed to show that Waldman was the one who kind of instructed Johnny to bring this lawsuit against Amber Heard, and Johnny was the one who instructed Waldman to put out those statements to defame Amber Heard and to bring about negative publicity around that. And this lawyer, Waldman, was also the lawyer who represented Johnny Depp when Johnny Depp brought a lawsuit against Joel Mandel. Remember, his former business manager? He brought a lawsuit against him alleging that the company mismanaged the money. And again, I'm going to question the fact, what was the point of bringing him in if they already knew very well, being lawyers themselves, that it will fall under attorney-client privilege. But then again, I'm thinking it was maybe strategic to kind of point out that because he's not answering those type of questions, it kind of implies that, you know, all the things they are saying about Waldman and about Johnny is true. So I think that that's what they were trying to highlight here. And it was also mentioned that Waldman, he actually had at some point a Twitter account, and he got the account suspended. And Waldman is saying that apparently Twitter said there were multiple violations of their policies, but they never said why or what those violations were. And Twitter decided, when he started questioning what he exactly violated, then Twitter reinstated his account and appealed against the decision. But then Twitter came back saying that he was suspended for life. And to this day, Waldman still doesn't know why his Twitter account was suspended for life. There was a very interesting thing that I took from him being on the stand. And he kind of... So you remember when Amber Heard, she filed for the restraining order against Johnny Depp. Now Waldman is saying that he was a witness to Amber making a false statement. According to him, in my own words, I might say, he's saying that between 21st and 27th of the month that Amber Heard went to court, he witnessed Amber Heard without any bruises. and she alleged that those bruises were bruises that Johnny Depp gave her before filing for the restraining order. So Waldman was a witness to seeing Amber not having any bruises, and he wasn't the only witness. There were so many others who said the same thing. He also said, Waldman also said that he did his own investigation in the UK trial, and he found evidence that Amber Heard was committing perjury in the trial, and he took his findings to the LAPD, and he filed for perjury against Amber Heard to the LAPD. And then, as far as he knew, the LAPD took the report, and then it was transferred to another department who were supposed to be dealing with the report, but then he had no idea what happened after, if there was anything really came of it. Basically, more or less, this is what Waldman was saying, because most of the things he was asked he couldn't really say because of the attorney-client privilege. Moving on to the next witness, we also had the detective Mary Sandanaga, who was an LA detective apparently specializing in DV victims and DV perpetrators. She came as a witness on Amber Heard's side. It was very interesting to see. They kind of used in the deposition an avatar, so she didn't show her face, which was, I don't think I've ever seen. I had no idea that you can do these kind of things in a trial. But anyway, she said, this detective said that she's most knowledgeable in DV, and she was going on to describe the procedure that usually police officers follow when they have reports of a DV situation. She's saying that the officers who are going on the scene are the officers who are determining if there is any DV there, even if and even when the victim doesn't press any charges, and there is a report done in most circumstances, and the suspect is also arrested if he is found on the premises. There is also an extra report which is being created, also known as an extra DV report, and supplemental, and this includes any extra questions or specific questions that the police officers are asking when they answer to a report, when they go on the scene. And this is done for a risk assessment, if you will, and even if there are no charges pressed because they don't find any probable cause, they still keep a record for any future cause, so then they can go back to it and say, oh, but this happened before, these reports were done before, so you can kind of make an investigation over time if need be. And the police officer is also saying that even if the victim refuses to cooperate and refuses to press any charges, if there are injuries to the victim and property damage in the property, then the police officers will still do an investigation, even including everyone around. So this is more or less what the police officer talked about in the deposition, about the common practice and procedure that police officers follow. And of course, she was brought in as Amber Heard's witness because they were trying to discredit the 4 police officers who attended the scene. So can you imagine, now they are trying to blame the police officers. Can you just imagine, you have 4 police officers, 2 sets of police officers, who all 4 of them attended the scene, and they never saw anything. They didn't see any bruising on Amber, they didn't see any property damage in the house, they didn't see anything which would be consistent with someone as being a victim of DV, because we know from their depositions, they were interviewed as well, and they said, all 4 of them said that whatever was on Amber's face, it was consistent with someone who had been crying. So you mean to tell me that you have 4 police officers going on the scene who had no idea who Amber Heard was, who had no idea that they are going in the penthouse where Johnny Depp lived prior to going there? So you mean to tell me that they are just brushing it off because it was Johnny Depp? So yeah, again, it doesn't make sense, because you have police officers who are following procedures, and they even, one set of police officers, they even had a dash cam on, so you could see what was in the house, and there was absolutely no damage in the house there. You can see from that. And also the police officers, when they first go on the scene, they kind of make an assessment of the whole property, even if let's say the victim is not cooperative. So if they find probable cause, they will investigate further. If there is nothing to find there, they will make a report and they will not investigate anything, because there is just nothing to investigate, right? So yeah, this is basically why this police officer was brought in, to kind of discredit the 4 police officers, which in my opinion didn't really work, because so far the witnesses for Amber Heard's side, from my perspective, didn't help Amber at all, and it only emphasized what Johnny Depp was saying and feeling, and it kind of helped Johnny Depp, if you will. Then we had, oh my god, this, I mean, I am rubbish at maths, I have to say, and also I hate statistics, mathematical statistics, infographics, all these graphs and all these kind of things. I just completely hate them because I cannot understand them for the life of me. So the next witness was Ron Schnell. Now, Ron Schnell came as a witness for Amber Heard's side, and he is a statistical, and he deals in statistical and forensic analysis on social media networks, to include Twitter, Instagram, you know, Facebook, Reddit, so all these major social media things. And he came with his graphs, and he came with his hashtags, and he was looking at different hashtags that bring negative publicity towards Amber, including Justice for Johnny Depp, Amber Third. Also, it was We Just Don't Like Amber, Amber is an... So all these kind of things, he's saying that these are all negative publicity towards Amber from Johnny Depp fans, or whatever, fan base, or whatever he was saying there. Guys, I can't really say much about him because I don't, like I said, I hate this kind of graphs and statistics and things like that. So I'm just gonna play a clip of basically his explanation, or more clips, more or less, so you can kind of get the idea, because even if I wanna try to explain it, I am not gonna be able to explain it because I'm confused myself. Okay, so basically this is it.
Tweets that were negative towards Ms. Heard, and I found that a super majority of them were using one of 4 different hashtags.
And so overall, what did your analysis find regarding negative hashtags about Ms. Heard from April 2020 until the end of January 2021?
Well, there were over 1,243,000 and change uses of those hashtags during that time frame you just mentioned.
And did you perform an analysis of the negative hashtags from April 2020 until January 2022?
Yes, I did.
And what was the result of that?
There were over another million, so 2.38 million, I think.
And how did you determine that the tweets were negative about Ms. Heard?
Well, I hadn't been asked that until later on in this, but I didn't think that that would be in controversy. I mean, some of these hashtags are pretty rude, and it would really surprise me that anyone would think that they wouldn't be negative towards Ms. Heard. But when I was asked about it later, I actually took a random sampling and looked at them and could not find any that were not negative towards Ms. Heard.
And what was the random sampling that you used?
I did 2 of them. They were 1,000 each.
And how did you determine which 1,000 tweets to use to review in each search?
I wrote a program that truly selected them at random.
And in your experience, is 2,000 tweets a meaningful sample?
If they're chosen at random in this universe, yes.
Okay. In addition to the 4 hashtags for Ms. Heard, did you review any other? Did you look at any other hashtags?
I did.
And what type of hashtags did you look for?
I looked at what I found to be 6 hashtags that would be negative towards Mr. Depp.
Okay, but Michelle, could you put up demonstrative 1, which is on the 5th page of attachment 4 of Mr. Schnell's expert designation. Mr. Schnell, did you create this chart?
I did.
And what data is this chart based on?
This is based on the search API from Twitter, and it rolls up the number of tweets with the various hashtags by month of these 2 years. 3 years.
And is this the chart you made, Mr. Schnell?
It is.
Okay. And at the top here, there are hashtags that are in yellow. You see that?
I do.
Okay. And if we go all the way to the right, well, first let's scroll over to the left here. I apologize. You see, in 2020, there's the months of June and July.
I do.
Okay. And what are these columns? First, tell the jury what they represent.
So each of these is the number of tweets with the hashtags, with the corresponding hashtag during that month.
Okay. And if we look at the first one in yellow, you see that first hashtag, the fourth one over?
I do.
And are there any, what does it show from 2018, frankly, to July of 2020?
There were none.
And then what happens in August of 2020?
Well, there's a remarkable jump from July to August of 2020. It goes from 0 to 13,878.
And if we scroll to the right, the last three hashtags, which are highlighted, or shows the difference between June and July, what did your analysis show?
Well, you can see that June is about at its steady state. In July, there's also a remarkable jump.
And that's for all three of those hashtags?
That's correct.
Okay. And the hashtags, if the hashtags that are in blue are the ones related to Mr. Depp, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Oh, by the way, what is your understanding of when the last alleged defamatory statement was made by Mr. Depp through Mr. Waldman?
My understanding is that it was the end of June of that year.
Of 2020?
Yes.
Now, looking at the hashtags that are highlighted in blue for Mr. Depp, for the months of November and December of 2018 and January of 2019, what does your analysis show?
Well, I see a remarkable jump in November of 2018, and then it starts to, well, it goes way down in December of 18 and January of 19.
Okay. And do you know when Ms. Heard wrote the op-ed in this matter?
My understanding is that it was December of 2018.
Okay. And if we go to November of 2020 for the hashtags related to Mr. Depp, if you see the difference between October of 2020 and November of 2020, what do you see there?
I also see a large jump from October to November of 2020.
Okay. And if we look at the last hashtag in blue that says Johnny Depp is a wife beater, what does that show what did your analysis find in terms of tweets with those hashtags?
It looks to me that also, I mean, there are none prior to, well, little here and there. There are single-digit ones, but prior to November of 2020, there are basically none, and then it jumps up to over 2,000.
And do you know what happened in November of 2020?
My understanding is that's when the UK trial ended.
Okay, we can take this down. And can you put up demonstrative 2, which will make 1901, which will identify as 1901?
That's fine, 1901. Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, 1901.
And Mr. Banya, what data is this chart based on? Oh, I did the same thing. Mr. Schnell, what data is this chart based on?
This chart is actually based on the data we just looked at, but out until January of 2022. And it's just another way of displaying the numbers in graphical form so that we can see peaks and valleys.
And what are the dotted lines?
So if you look at the top, you can see that the dashed lines are the negative hashtags towards Ms. Heard, and the solid ones are the negative hashtags towards Mr. Depp.
And what is being shown here? In your analysis, what is shown with the tweets related to Ms. Heard?
Well, you can see that there's a huge spike in February of 2020, which I believe Mr. Waldman just testified that that's when he leaked an audio tape of some kind. There's also a notable, remarkable spike in July of 2020. In November of 2020 and then in March of 2021.
And the spike in February 2020, that came before the alleged defamatory statements, correct?
Which one?
The spike in February 2020.
That is correct.
And even though that spike came in before the alleged defamatory statements, even taking account for that spike, what time period has more negative tweets about Ms. Heard, before or after April 2020?
Right. So even taking into account this really large spike in February of 2020, and you look at from the beginning of 2018 until the beginning of 2022, there are a majority of the negative tweets are between April of 2020 through the beginning of 2022. And
do you recall at your deposition being asked that a spike in negative hashtags occurring before April 8th, right before April 8th, 2020?
Objection, hearsay.
I would ask about his attorney.
Overruled. Good.
I remember questions regarding particular dates, yes.
And what's your understanding as to why there was more negative tweets in April 6th and April 7th than April 8th, 2020?
Objection, no foundation.
Was there more negative tweets in April 6th and April 7th than in April 8th, 2020 as it relates to Ms. Heard?
Right. If you look at the day-by-day counts, which I supplied to Mr. Depp, and you can see that there's a spike that begins on April 6th and goes for a few days. So April 6th is, to my understanding, before what people are calling the alleged defamatory statement.
And did you look at the tweets for April 6th and April 7th?
I did.
And what did you find?
I found that there are Waldman statements that are the same as on the 8th, on the 6th, and the 7th. The Daily Mail on the 6th and Vanity Fair on the 7th.
And what terms were being used?
Well, hoax is certainly used in each of them. I think abuse hoax is used in one of them. I don't have it in front of me, but generally speaking, in the 7th, I think it's the same exact terms that are used in the one on the 8th, but the 6th may be slightly different, but it has the word hoax.
Okay. If we can go to the second page of this demonstrative. What's being shown in the second page of this demonstrative?
So this is it's the same data as the first one, but I've removed one hashtag, the Justice for Johnny Depp hashtag, because it kind of overwhelms all the others because there are so many of them. And by removing it, it sort of rescales the graph and you can see the others much better. And even though they looked really tiny in the previous page, you can see that they're big numbers, over 100,000 and stuff. So this shows, and if you look between the two, you can see that the curves are the same. So it shows like a mathematical correlation between all the hashtags.
So what do you mean by mathematical correlation?
Well, they're correlated. You can see the numbers go up and down at the same place.
So I'm understanding the hashtags are essentially all going up and down at the same times?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. And can we put up demonstrative exhibit 3?
Which would make 1902?
1902.
That's
yes.
fine.
Thank you.
All right, any objection to 1902?
No, this is demonstrative.
Demonstrative, yes. Okay. You can publish that.
Mr. Chanel, did you create this chart?
I did.
And what does this chart show?
So what I did was I took the data that I supplied to Mr. Depp, which was the original data from April of 2020 through January of 2021, and I searched it for certain key terms, specifically hoax, fake, and fraud. And that's what it's representing.
So this is basically more or less all the witnesses that came on Amber Heard's side. And as a conclusion, I'm going to say that all of these witnesses more or less Oh yes, you also had Joshua Drew as well. He was a witness for Amber Heard in a deposition, and he was, I think, Raquel Pennington's husband or partner at the time, and they lived together in the penthouses. And he basically said that he never witnessed any kind of violence between Johnny and Amber. He never saw Johnny being violent towards Amber. He never saw Johnny being, raging towards Amber. So basically, he never saw any instances of DV between the two, and everything that he knew, he was being told by Amber after the fact, and everything that he witnessed was after alleged fights and arguments between Johnny and Amber. And of course that he also mentioned, which is very important, Joshua Drew mentioned that he witnessed Amber Heard bringing hundreds of men late at night when Johnny was away for work, including James Franco, Elon Musk, and many others. And she was constantly having people over, constantly. In that penthouse where Amber and Johnny lived was always full of other people. So when Johnny came home, instead of finding Amber and kind of enjoying their time together after being away for so long, he was welcomed by these swarms of people all the time, where he had no privacy whatsoever. And Joshua Drew also said that Amber Heard cut contact with him for a very long time, and then all of a sudden, after this lawsuit was filed, she contacted him saying that she loves him and missed him and these kind of things. And then of course she asked him if he can be a witness in the trial. Yes, we also had Raquel Pennington as a witness for Amber Heard's side, and as we know, Raquel Pennington, she was a long-time friend of Amber, and she also lived in the penthouses with Amber Heard, and she was really crying there in her deposition, and it kind of felt in a sense that it's going to be harmful for Johnny Depp. But as she went on in her deposition, she also said she never witnessed any violence from Johnny towards Amber. She said that she never witnessed the two of them fighting and things ending in physical violence. And she said that she saw instances where Amber had marks on her face, and like she calls them bruises and things like that, and destruction apparently made by Johnny in the house. Mind you, the penthouse is Johnny's penthouse. He bought it with his own money. So from my point of view, if he wants to destroy the whole thing, then he can destroy the whole thing because he bought it. It's his, right? So it doesn't really matter what kind of damage he does to the property. It's his own property. If he wants to drill a hole in the wall, then so be it. If he wants to crush a wall with a hammer, then so be it. It doesn't have anything to do with anything. Why? Because he kind of pushed rails with Amber Heard's clothing. That's the destruction that he made. I don't know, you guys, but Raquel Pennington, she's saying what Amber Heard is saying as well. It kind of feels like it was like a rehearsed testimony. I don't know, I got that feeling, because I got that feeling from a lot of Amber Heard's witnesses, her friends, that it sounded like it was rehearsed, and it sounded just like the way that Amber Heard would speak. So it sounded just like Amber Heard would speak. So to me it sounded that it was rehearsed. And to me it sounded that they only say what Amber is telling them, and they only know what Amber is telling them without them having witnessed anything. Now it's very interesting that Amber Heard cut contact with Raquel Pennington, even though apparently Raquel was her best friend and went through so many things with Amber, right? And she was supporting Amber in this difficult time in her relationship with Johnny. And they cut contact, and so they are not friends anymore. Again, this kind of goes to show, to tell you something, right? And Raquel Pennington also said that she was the one who took a lot of photos of Amber. She was the one who was in court when Amber filed for the DVRO, for the restraining order, and she took photos. Mind you, Amber, when she filed for the restraining order, She was there with her publicist, she was there with her lawyer, she was there with, you know, taking photos and kind of things, and these kind of things, which sounds a bit like being staged. So again, Raquel Pennington is echoing what Amber Heard is saying, but what's very interesting is that Raquel Pennington is using exactly the same terms that Amber is using, such as monster, such as Johnny the opiate, Johnny the addict, Johnny the alcoholic. You know, the monster is coming out, you know, he kind of disappears, and this echoes further into more witnesses, including Whitney Henriquez, who is Amber Heard's sister. So we kind of see the same story being relayed by Amber Heard's friends, but not being relayed in a way that they speak differently, in a different style. Being relayed exactly like Amber relays it, right? I don't even know how to explain it, but you know, even though you and me, we tell the same story, yeah? But the way that we tell the story will be definitely 100% different. Even if we keep the same points, we say the story differently because none of us are the same. So we speak differently, we relay things differently, we tell stories differently. But the way that her friends are telling the story, it's exactly the same way that Amber is saying the story. That's why, to me, it feels very rehearsed. So please, guys, do let me know what do you think in the comment section down below.
But you've never seen Johnny hit Amber.
That's correct, and I've affirmed it to everybody that I've spoken to. I've been explicit about that.
And you've never seen Johnny hit any woman.
Correct.
Do you recall having a conversation with Rocky and Amber after Mr. Depp and his security personnel left the building, but before Officer Science and Officer Haddon arrived?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
You'll have to forgive me again. My memory of the exact sequence of events, that transpired after all this is a little foggy. If memory serves, Amber was damn near catatonic after all this. We had gotten her into PH1 so we could deadbolt the door and keep her safe until he left. A few minutes thereafter, I had gotten a little bit of a rundown from Raquel over what had transpired. Raquel got her to call her lawyer, Samantha Spector, to find out what to do. And if memory serves, Samantha's recommendation was that we immediately put together a contemporaneous, matter-of-fact statement together of what had transpired that night. And that ultimately was up to Amber as to what she wanted to do with the police or whatever it may be.
Are you aware that Amber Heard spoke to Officer Science and Officer Haddon that evening?
Yes.
Were you present when she was speaking to them?
No.
Did Amber file the complaint that night?
No.
Did the police arrest Mr. Depp?
No.
Did they issue a warrant for his arrest?
Not that I'm aware of.
Mr. Drew, let's turn for the moment to May 22nd, 2016. Did you see Ms. Heard at all that day?
Yes.
When did you see her?
At various points throughout the day. If memory serves, Raquel had committed to a jewelry show somewhere, I want to say it was downtown, I might be mistaken, it might have been out in Venice, somewhere in Los Angeles. So she was out most of the day. So I cleared my schedule to be able to be there should Amber need anything. If memory serves, either her attorney or somebody in her group had a friend come over with a locksmith to change the locks just to be safe. And I was there to make sure that happened and just, like I said, be there for Amber should she need anything, just so she wasn't alone.
When you saw Amber on May 22nd, you don't know whether it was the morning or the afternoon. Is that right?
It was sporadic throughout the day. I think it was some point late morning and throughout the afternoon.
When you first saw her, did you notice any marks on her face?
Yes.
Describe the marks, please.
To be very honest with you, I don't actually remember which side of her face it was, but I do distinctly remember there being a red mark and a small bruise on her cheekbone and red marks just above her eyebrow and to the right side, or to the side of her eyebrow.
Did you see any swelling?
A little bit.
Can you remember anything else? Did you see marks anywhere else other than the ones you've described?
No.
Did you ever notice anyone visiting Amber Heard at night while Mr. Depp was away?
During the time that I was living there?
Yes.
Yes.
On how many occasions?
I wouldn't even be able to estimate.
Was it more than 10?
Yes.
Was it more than 20?
Yes.
Was it more than 30?
Yes.
Was it more than 50?
Again, I can't really speculate. I was there for quite some time.
When did that first occur?
I mean, I'm not privy to her comings and goings, and she had other friends than us that were coming to see her. So.
And again, to be specific, I'm just talking about visitors at night when Mr. Depp was away.
Again, I can't say with any specificity.
When did that first happen that you were aware of?
I mean, I would say pretty early on, but again, there's no context to it. The other consideration that I would say is that the hallway between all of these penthouses was public right-of-way going to the pool. So my understanding of people coming and going, it might have been the public, it might have been residents, or no, I'm sorry, not public, it might have been residents in the building. I can't really say with any specificity.
Who was Elon Musk?
Elon Musk was a gentleman that Amber dated intermittently following the restraining order.
When did can you recognize Elon Musk?
Yes.
When did you first see Elon Musk at Penthouse 3?
I'm not quite clear exactly, but I want to say it was about 3 to 4 weeks after the restraining order was filed.
But while Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard were still married, correct?
Yes.
After May 22nd, 2016, did you ever see any marks on Ms. Heard?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Would you please describe, as far as you can remember, what cleanup efforts were undertaken and by whom?
Well, myself. In Penthouse 3, there was a number of pieces of broken glass and items strewn about the counters and the floor in the kitchen. Only in the kitchen, sort of around the kitchen island. In the hallway outside of the penthouses was quite a bit of spilled wine. I don't believe we dealt with that at all. And then in PH5, all of Raquel's things had been strewn about pretty dramatically, so we did our best to sort of put that back together and pack everything back up. And there were, things like piles of books and picture frames were broken, and our piles of books were strewn about, and picture frames were broken and things like that. We just picked the glass up off the floor so the dogs didn't get hurt, and I think we left everything else for the time being.
Did you actually see who strewn about? That's not the right verb. But did you actually see the person who threw her clothes around?
I didn't witness firsthand any destruction of any kind.
Are you aware that Ms. Heard alleged that Mr. Depp hit her on or about December 15?
Yes.
What, if anything, do you know about that incident?
So my recollection of that is Raquel and I had come back to the penthouses from where I don't recall specifically, sometime, I want to say late afternoon, early evening. And Raquel was supposed to meet with Amber as soon as they came back. Amber had not been responding to her text messages for some time, so we let ourselves into PH3 together to go check on her and make sure everything was okay. When we came in, the kitchen was completely, I wouldn't say it's trashed, but it was out of order enough for something to be off. And then when we turned the corner, on the section of counter next to the kitchen sink, there was something written on the counter, and I don't know, I can't remember what material it was, and to be honest, I can't actually recall exactly what was written. It was something very, very weird, like all is such a fraud or something akin to that.
You never saw Mr. Depp strike Amber Heard on or about December 15, 2015,
No.
correct?
Correct.
Did you see Miss Heard that night?
Yes.
Did you notice any bruising or other signs of injury?
Yes, pretty significant.
What did you observe?
I noticed specifically she had pretty significant bruising on the inside of both eye sockets, kind of extending down the bridge of her nose, and her forehead was red.
But you have no first-hand knowledge of how that injury occurred.
That's correct.
Are you aware that she made Amber Heard made a television appearance the next day?
Yes.
You testified that in December of 2015, Amber called you over to her apartment so that you could check her out. Is that a correct statement? You testified to that?
Yes.
Okay, my question was, after you arrived, you observed injuries to Ms. Heard, right?
Yes.
Do you remember seeing that her head was bloody, where a chunk of hair had been ripped out of the back of her head?
Yeah. Yes.
Was her head actively bleeding when you saw her?
It wasn't like dripping down her head, but it was raw and red.
Was it actively bleeding, if you remember?
Define actively bleeding.
Was there blood?
Yes.
How could you tell hair had been ripped out of her head?
There was a bloody patch with hair missing.
And in the course of your career acting in theater, television, movies, etc., did you come to meet a person by the name of Johnny Depp?
Yes.
Can you specify in time, Ms. Barkin, when you met him?
I would say 1990.
And upon or after meeting him, did there come a time when you became friends?
Yes.
And can you describe how that happened?
We just developed a friendship over time that lasted, I guess, if we met in the 90s, maybe 10 years or a little less.
And fair to say that Mr. Depp at the time was also an actor, a professional actor?
Yes.
Were you, did you act in any film, stage, or TV productions with Mr. Depp?
Yes, I was in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
How often would you see Mr. Depp?
When I lived in New York, usually whenever I go to LA, if I were in LA, I'd see him once a week, maybe more. I mean, the friendship went up and down, living on different coasts.
And did there come a time when your friendship with Mr. Depp became more than that, became romantic in nature?
Yes.
And at what point in time did your relationship with Mr. Depp take a romantic turn?
After I had moved to Hollywood, and he, you know, switched the buttons.
Recall what year you moved to Hollywood?
Yes, 1994.
When you said switch the buttons, can you tell me what you meant by that?
The friendship went from a purely platonic friendship to a romantic one.
At that point in 1994, when the relationship turned romantic,
change that to sexual.
To sexual.
Thank you.
For how long did your relationship with Mr. Depp remain sexual?
Several months. Anywhere between 3 and 5, 6.
And during that period, how often would you see Mr. Depp? That period when it was sexual?
say I'd see him 3 or 4 times a week.
And again, I'm not looking to pry into private details, but can you tell me, like, where you would see him? Just give me some sense of that.
Yeah, he would come to my house, or I would go to his house.
And both houses in L.A.?
Yes, about 10-minute drive apart from each other.
And at either when you were at his house, where you didn't stay the night, or where you were at his house when you did stay the night, were there other people in the house who saw you there? Who would those people be?
He had an assistant. His sister. That's all I can remember now.
Do you recall?
Like I said, I'm gonna make a separate video on Whitney Henriquez, Amber Heard's sister, and her testimony, because there are so many points that I'm trying to highlight in that video, including some behavioral analysts who watched her whilst being on the stand, and also demonstrations of the story of the stairs and Kate Moss, right? So yeah, stay tuned for that. We are expecting in court to hear from Kate Moss. We've also heard in court from Jennifer Howell, but I will cover that in another video, in my, I don't know, my next video, or maybe the second after this one. I'm not sure. I'm trying to kind of manage the time here, and as well catch up on the trial, because we are still going live with the trial. So for now, thank you guys so much for watching. Please let me know again, what do you think in the comment section down below. If you haven't subscribed already, please make sure you please consider hitting the subscribe button. Also make sure you turn your notification bells on, so you are notified about any new videos I upload. I also have a Patreon account. If you are interested, the link will be on your screen and also in the description down below. On Patreon, there are 3 different tiers. There we talk about all the things that we can't talk about on YouTube. It's 18 plus. I'll give you shout outs. I'll give members shout outs in every single one of my videos that I publish. You'll also have crime scene photos, so maybe behind the scene photos or videos, or you know, whatever else I can think of. Yeah, so again, the link is on your screen in the description down below. Don't forget to like the video. It really shows support for the channel, and it really helps me in terms of the exposure I get on the YouTube platform. Thank you guys so much. Take care and stay safe, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye.